Hi, and welcome to this week's Walk the Wu Wei. It's lovely to see you all. This week we're talking all about crying and asking the questions, why do we cry? What's the kind of Wu Wei Wisdom teaching on why we cry? And also, is it okay to cry? We've had some great questions into the group about this. People have said, I find myself crying when I'm really happy. Why is that? What's the reason for that? And also, a lady, Rebecca, who was on our retreat recently, contacted us and said, the day after the retreat, she literally just couldn't stop crying at all. And she wasn't, it wasn't because she was sad or angry or particularly happy. So she couldn't quite understand what was going on. So David, do you want to just touch upon what the Wu Wei Wisdom teaching is for crying?
Yeah, and I think the whole point is it's not one thing. Crying can be many things because crying is the result of chi energy moving. And so chi energy moving can move for a lot of reasons. You can cry when you're sad, you can cry when you're happy, you can cry when you're disappointed, you can cry when you're moved, emotionally moved can make you cry. And there's lots of different sayings about this. There's one that I particularly like is that crying might be the first sign of ice melting. I just think it's a nice saying.
Yeah.
But there's also another Taoist saying that says cry when you're happy, shout when you're angry, so what it's trying to say is emotions are okay, and understanding that crying is just an emotion. The Wu Wei is to try and acknowledge it as an emotion and then go for the reason to try and understand what created that. Mm-hmm. And that's the emotional education. What has created? So I think it was Rebecca. If you were crying all day or being tearful, just take a moment and drop your shoulders, Rebecca, and just think, so what was I thinking? Or what beliefs changed to bring on those tears? The tears itself is not the problem. We're not worried about the tears. Tears can be very good. What you want to do in the emotional education is to try and understand what changed in your beliefs, what changed in your thinking that created the tears. And it might be the breakthrough that you've been looking for, Rebecca.
Yeah, and I think for some people, certainly when it comes out of the blue like that, like Rebecca described, and also for Raki, who was the lady who kindly asked the original question, when you're really, really in your green light, having a strong sense of joy and happiness, to cry is not an unusual thing.
No, I think it's a good thing.
It's fantastic.
I wouldn't particularly put the judgment. Again, remember the three? Don't be judgmental, don't be critical, don't compare. So I wouldn't put the judgment on it. And I'm really pleased to talk about this, because I think this, from our model, is one of the biggest things that gets misunderstood. We are not saying emotions are bad. We are not saying emotions should be avoided. We are not saying emotions are good. Emotions are there as a red or green light, trying to show you what you're thinking or what you're believing. So when you get that crying, just take a moment and to come back and think, what is it that I'm thinking or I'm believing that's created that crying?
Yeah.
And then it can be really helpful to you. So some people will say, oh, I'm oversensitive. And I'd just like you to spend a moment on that. It's such a shame because if you're a sensitive person, don't betray your sensitivity. It's one of your greatest assets. There's no need to be oversensitive or undersensitive. Why don't you just harmonize with your sensitivity and use your sensitivity correctly? A sensitive person, there's no need for a sensitive person to be crying all the time. Again, I would do the emotional education work. And if you are crying, then just to step back and just to think, now, what is it that created those tears? Is it the right reason or the wrong reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I kind of strongly recall the last time I cried. I guess, with green lights, with feelings of joy, happiness. And it doesn't happen very often. I mean, certainly doesn't happen.
It should happen all the time with me.
It doesn't happen. Yeah,
You should be crying every day.
Every day. Every morning when I wake up.
You cry.
No, I mean, for me, it was about, I was on holiday. I was extremely relaxed in a beautiful environment, and I had my headphones on, and I was listening to some music, classical music, and all the environment, my kind of deep sense of relaxation, the beautiful music, all in that moment where I was very much in the moment, fully absorbing everything in that place where I was literally moved to tears, and it kind of
Okay, so let's do some golden thread work with you.
Yeah.
So what was you thinking or believing in that moment, Alex? Relax now. Drop your shoulders.
I felt, or I believed.
Good.
I thought, I knew actually, this is a stronger word. I knew in that moment that I was in the most magical place, that I was extremely fortunate to be where I was, to have the freedom to relax and rest, to have the benefit of listening to the beautiful music. And I felt totally connected to that moment. And it was that awareness in that moment that moved me so much. And I guess the expression was the tears. And it was fantastic, although it did take me by surprise. And I guess...
So what do you think that would be? Your connection to the oneness, your connection to the divine, your connection to understand that you are blessed?
I think it was all of those things. I guess my feeling was I was just overawed by what a magical world we lived in, or what a magical moment that was, you know. I think, you know, for me personally, a lot of my time, I'm kind of busy doing practical things, tasks, day-to-day jobs. And, you know, I don't take in how lucky I am, how wonderful everything is, all those things. And it was just
okay, so I'm going to carry on my therapy work with you now, Alex.
Okay.
So bear with us now. So what did you learn from that experience?
I learned that actually I have that ability to connect, because I was on holiday, it was a beautiful environment, it was great music, but I can get myself into a beautiful environment by going out for a walk every day. I can listen to great music whenever I want, any day I want, on my headphones. So it was what I learned was that I can connect back to that knowing, that awareness, whenever I want, and it's my choice and my responsibility, I guess. That's what I
think
learned.
that's a beautiful teaching that we should all remember. You are blessed.
Totally.
You are blessed to be living this life in this beautiful planet, in this miraculous universe. Never forget that blessing. And so what I think Alex is showing us, sharing with us, thank you for sharing.
Pleasure.
But I didn't know that, but thank you for sharing. But there's sometimes we get so caught up in our busy mind, we get so caught up in the day-to-day stuff, you know, we really forget the most important thing, and we really forget that when we look around, we are blessed. You are divine. I love that work the American mathematician did I tell you about that?
Yeah.
He worked out the odds of you being born, and the odds are 400 trillion to 1 that you were born. Let alone having the life that you're having all the blessings, the joy, everything that's happening to you. 400 trillion to 1.
Yeah.
You are amazing. I say, I've done a talk today and I always go, you're awesome. Never forget you're awesome. And so when you get those tears, use them, interpret the tears, try and find out what it is, because as Alex just found out, there's a lesson there.
Yeah.
There's a lesson there that Alex needs to grab and hold on to and incorporate into her life.
Yeah, and I think that, I guess that is the Wu Wei Wisdom teaching, is about, we always say, use the emotions in whatever form of expression you feel, and whether it's a kind of red light feelings, rumbling in your stomach, butterflies,
anger, frustration,
whatever it is, use them, including crying, as a kind of the signpost to a deeper lesson, more profound lesson. And I guess for me,
a spiritual lesson.
That was my lesson. And thank you for re-pointing that out to me, because it's.
But isn't this funny that, because you do this work and you're involved with the community and you're doing all this work, and this is why this community can be so profound and so helpful, because we need to be reminded.
Yeah.
I need to be reminded. You need to be reminded. As everybody in the community needs to be reminded, because we can get washed away with the day-to-day misunderstandings, unfortunate things that happens, little upsets. Don't do it. I'm going to say it now. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
And reconnect to who you really are. You are divine. You are awesome. Never forget that. And more so, you are blessed. So use things like crying as an emotional education. I think there's a question about a child, isn't there, as someone said?
Yeah, so I guess we're coming on to the second part of this teaching, which is it okay to cry? Well, obviously we've kind of said yes, it is.
Yeah, it's okay to do everything.
It's about appropriateness.
It's okay to say you're awesome. Woo, 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 woo. That's okay.
But I guess there are, a couple of points I wanted to make on this. There is a thing about appropriateness. So if you're crying all the time at the drop of a hat in situations where it may not necessarily be appropriate, so for example, at work, kind of in front of colleagues, now, is that appropriate or not? So there's a question on that.
So that's the first thing you have to ask yourself.
First question.
Is that appropriate?
Is it appropriate? And you'll authentically know the answer.
Absolutely.
You'll authentically know the answer. The key is not to deny your authentic self-expression, but have that form of self-expression in a way and a time that is appropriate, I guess. And only you know that. So we can't give you a right or wrong answer to that. And I think that's something that Patricia touched upon. Now, the other thing I wanted to raise about crying.
Just before you move off that, but if you are crying at inappropriate times, first job is to judge the appropriateness. And then the second job is what we said at the beginning. Sit down quietly, drop your shoulders, take a breath, just like Alex did, and try and trace back. It's called the golden thread, and it's the golden thread meditation. It's like you're holding a thread and you trace it back. And how you do that is very easy, and those of you who've been on the retreat see me do it to people. It's nothing magical, it's very easy. You just ask why. Why am I crying? Why did that upset me? What's the thought behind that? Keep on asking why. Be careful when you do this, because the mind will sometimes block you. Do not say, I don't know why. That's not the truth. You always know why. And you go back and you find out the reason. And then you own that reason. So here we come back to find it, own it, then you can change it.
Yeah, because I think with that, obviously for a lot of people, when you cry, it's a form of release.
Chi moving.
It's moving the chi, it's moving the emotion. And so what a lot of people do is they have a good cry, they feel a bit better, and then they don't actually do the work.
They don't do the work. That's the key.
To look at what caused that emotion. So we're saying the emotion, whether it's an expression of a red light, a green light, an amber light, or anything in between, is good. But the key is to look at what caused it, because the mistake people make is they have a good cry, they feel better, particularly when it's to do with red light stuff, but they don't actually learn the lesson.
They don't understand. And here's emotional education.
And that's why people find themselves crying more often, more than would be the authentic way.
Absolutely.
I guess because it's like you have a cry, you put the bag back on the carousel goes round, different person, different situation, the bag's there, you cry, you have the emotional feeling, you cry, but you're not learning the lesson.
And so therefore, and Alex explained that exactly right, instead of being in control of the emotion, instead of being in control of the crying is in control of you.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with crying. Crying's fine. We're not saying anything. It's just understanding what's creating that crying.
So, two more things I wanted to raise. and this is quite important in terms of crying is okay. It's a great signpost. It's a natural form of self-expression, authentic self-expression. But a lot of people use crying as a form of manipulation or avoidance.
Okay.
And do you want to talk about that, David?
Well, yes, I mean, this can happen a lot. It happens as downstairs when I'm working with people. When we're going into difficult areas and they don't want to go there, they may start crying. And some people use that to basically say, back off, don't go here. But they get caught in their own maze of misunderstandings. It'd be much better to say to me, David, stop now, I've had enough. That's fine, that's great. And if you use your emotions as a manipulation, you get caught in your maze. You're building the maze, and then I will guarantee you, you will get lost in your maze.
Yeah.
You will get lost in your emotions, and you will be able to comprehend what is the truth and what is the emotion. So don't use the emotions as a manipulation, as to get your own way, as to get out of a tricky situation. It'd be much better to face up to it, stop it, and deal with the issue in front of you.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, when they're almost they got the back against the wall in terms of a situation they need to confront, whether it's like in a relationship or the dynamic of a relationship or a family situation or a work situation, or, you know, the crying is almost like an inauthentic tool that gets brought out of the box to avoid the confrontation.
For some people, it's like a get out of jail card free. They'll produce the crying to escape from the situation, you know.
And then a lot of people will go, I can't deal with that. So, you know, your husband or your wife or your partner or your friend or your work colleague, if they haven't got the emotional education skills to deal with someone who's crying, then they back off. So in a way, it's worked in that moment, but actually it hasn't, because you've done yourself a disservice.
It's like catching your child with his hand in a cookie jar
Yeah.
and they start crying because they've been found out.
Yeah.
And what you should be teaching them is how to deal with that, how to address the situation. And here's the fundamentals of Wu Wei Wisdom, is to deal with it like the river flowing down. So here comes a teaching from my master. He said, imagine a river flowing down from the mountains, crystal clear, heading towards the sea. When it hits a big rock in the middle of the river, it doesn't go, oh my God, I'm scuppered, and start crying. It finds a way around it. And that's what we have to do in life, is to find a way around it.
Yeah, great. Well, I think hopefully that's given you all lots of food for thought. We've really enjoyed this
Can we
topic.
just talk about children?
Oh yeah, sure.
Now, if your child is crying a lot, just to give you this, it's very important, because some children will. What they need above all is emotional education.
Yeah.
So give them a hug, give them a drink of milk, sit them down on your lap, and then do what we're doing now. Find out what they think or they believe that created the crying. This is the most profound, important thing that you can do as a parent, is to be able to speak to your child, get through the hurdle of crying, because the child can sometimes, as Alex said, use it as a manipulation to stop you. So you get through that, you give them a hug, you tell them that you love them, but the emotional education is you try and find out what they're thinking, what they believe that's causing that crying. Now, I've said that, and it sounds very easy. It's not. A child will not easily give you the problems that they may be encountering at school or with a friend. So you have to be very loving, very compassionate, very caring, but you have to be persistent to get to the root of the problem. So they understand that they can change those thoughts and they can change their beliefs. Sorry, I just needed to say that.
No, that's great, because, I mean, so many... and several people have written to us, and several people in the Facebook community group have said, you know, when they were being brought up, they were told, I think Laurie said, you know, we were told you're a big baby if you cry. You know, I mean, it's
I was told that, Laurie.
It's so wrong. It's so wrong.
I was brought up with my grandparents, and my granddad actually said those words for me: "Men do not cry." He was wrong.
We're beyond that now. We're
Yeah.
beyond that. Emotional education is the way.
It is.
So thank you all for watching. Please, as always, you can keep commenting and asking questions below, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.